Is eating people bad? With movies such as Hannibal and more recently Bones and All, released November 2022, it calls into question how cannibalism actually is depicted in the world today. As a student of anthropology at University of Alaska, Fairbanks, I am uniquely qualified in describing this to you. After all, so many swear by the benefits of placenta, it can't be all bad, right? I will describe first when people have no choice, the possible consequences, and when it has become necessary. I would first like to describe what is, I believe, the inspiration behind Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is known as Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. It's the attacking of oneself due to a genetic abnormality on the X chromosome, resulting in primarily male patients. It's first noticed that patients will have yellow sand in diapers as an infant due to increased uric acid. It is advised that parents have teeth removed regardless of health due to the biting of oneself and biting off of lips. It's a neurological condition which will affect them their likely short lives. These attacks will range from biting of oneself to, as they get older and more comprehensive of the dangers in the world, will at times evolve into prompting others to attack them in order to receive pain. What happens when it's by choice, though, and there are no medical reasons why? It was first noticed in 1985 England that cows were acting aggressive, skittish, abnormal posture, and loss of coordination. Eventually, this was found to be due to a spongiform encephalitis, also found in goats, known as scrappy. This appears to be holes in the brain and creating a sponge-like form. It was called into question whether this meat of the infected cows could be safe for human consumption when it was noticed the correlation of symptoms with Kuru disease, studied in 1950 Papua New Guinea. This disease was found in the Fore, which was one of the few remaining tribes in which still practiced funeral cannibalism. It was not until the village elders were able to identify the original affected individual that they were able to realize it came from primarily the women and children feeding themselves at these funerals without the men having as much consumption. And there are two sides to every coin. Sometimes this has become necessarily in history of human survival. There was known as the rule of the sea, in which travelers, when stranded, it must wait until the first individual naturally dies in order to eat the remains. Otherwise, people would still be tried for murder if they were to act upon this early. More famously would be the Donner Party in Nevada. They would leave their start in Oklahoma in 1846, and they were stuck from November 1946 until February 1947 in Sierra Nevada, just 50 miles from their final destination. While 3 rescue attempts were made from February to April, each time they returned to a more gruesome scene. I will not repeat the views depicted in reports. Finally, there is also, more recently, in 1972, a rugby team was in a plane crash held in the Andes Mountains. And after 8 days, they heard on the busted radio that the call for rescue had been called off. And so, as a result, turned to eating the dead on the plane crash. They never released who it was that was eaten. As Captain Barbosa would say, it is a general guideline, not an actual rule. It would be safe for human consumption for survival means, not safe for long-term consumption. So, without that genetic defect, best not to do it at all. As always, moderation is key with everything. Please avoid playing zombies in the future.